The night was quiet on the planet Velar. 3 moons hung in the purple sky, and the wind carried the smell of sweet flowers through the open windows of the grand library. Sat on the cold stone floor, her blue skin glowing softly in the candlelight. She was young, barely 20 cycles old, but her mind was sharp and hungry for knowledge. Around her sat a circle of children, all of them looking up at Elder Bora with wide eyes. The old teacher was telling stories again. Her voice was low and soft, like water running over smooth rocks. Had heard these stories many times before, but she never got tired of them. Long ago, Elder Bora began, before our people built cities in the stars, there was another species. They called themselves humans. The children gasped. Some of them laughed nervously, leaned forward, her 4 ears turning toward the elder to catch every word. The humans were strange creatures, Elder Bora continued. They had only 2 eyes, 2 ears, and their skin came in many colors, brown, white, black, and everything in between. They were small and weak compared to other species in the galaxy. They had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. A boy named raised his hand. If they were so weak, how did they survive? Elder Bora smiled, and her old eyes seemed to look at something far away. That is the question, young one. That is the mystery. The old texts say that humans were the most dangerous species in the known universe, not because of their bodies, but because of their minds. Felt a shiver run down her spine. She had read about humans in the ancient books. Most scholars said they were just legends, stories made up to teach children about courage and determination, but was not so sure. The humans came from a small blue planet called Earth, Elder Bora said. Their world was harsh. It had burning deserts, frozen mountains, and oceans that could swallow cities. Most species would die on such a planet, but the humans did not just survive. They conquered their world. The children were silent now. Even the wind outside seemed to stop and listen. They tamed fire, the elder said. They made tools from stone and metal. They built ships that could sail across their great oceans. And then, when they had mastered their own planet, they looked up at the stars and said, "We will go there too." Remembered reading this in the old texts. The first human space travelers had used machines so simple that modern species would laugh at them. They had no faster-than-light engines. They had no shields or advanced weapons. They just had courage and the will to explore. They reached their moon first, Elder Bora continued. It was a dead rock with no air and no life. Any other species would have turned back. But the humans planted their flags on that moon and said, "This is ours now, and soon the stars will be ours too." After the story session ended, stayed behind. She helped Elder Bora put away the candles and clean the stone floor. The old teacher moved slowly, her joints stiff with age. "Elder," said carefully, "do you believe the stories about humans are true?" Elder Bora stopped walking. She turned to look at with eyes that had seen many things. "What do you think, child?" "The Galactic Council says humans are myths," said. "They say there is no proof that such a species ever existed. All the old texts could be fake." "And what do you believe?" Was quiet for a moment. She thought about the stories she had heard and the books she had read. Something about them felt real. The details were too specific, too strange to be invented. "I think they were real," finally said. "I think humans existed, but I do not understand where they went." Elder Bora nodded slowly. "That is the great mystery. The old texts say that humans spread across the galaxy like fire spreads through dry grass. They built colonies on thousands of planets. They made alliances with dozens of species. And then, suddenly, they were gone." "Gone." "Vanished," Elder Bora said. "About 10,000 cycles ago, every human disappeared. Their colonies were empty. Their ships floated dead in space. It was as if they had never existed at all." Felt cold despite the warm night air. How is that possible? No one knows. Some say they destroyed themselves in a great war. Some say they found a new galaxy and left this one behind. And some say, Elder Bora paused and looked up at the three moons. Some say they are still out there, waiting. Waiting for what? Waiting for the right moment to return. Walked home that night with her head full of thoughts. She lived in a small house at the edge of the city, where the buildings ended and the silver forests began. Her mother was waiting for her with warm food on the table. "You stayed late again," said gently, "learning about old myths." "They are not just myths," Mother said as she sat down to eat. "I can feel it. Humans were real." Sighed and sat across from her daughter. "Even if they were real, they are gone now. The galaxy has moved on. We have the Galactic Council to protect us. We have the Empire for trade and commerce. What does it matter if some ancient species existed thousands of cycles ago?" Did not answer. She ate her food in silence, but her mind was far away. She was thinking about the old texts, about the stories of humans who never gave up, who fought against impossible odds and won. That night dreamed of Earth. She dreamed of a small blue planet spinning slowly in the darkness of space. She saw mountains covered with ice and oceans that sparkled like jewels. And in her dream, she saw something else, millions of ships rising from that planet, flying out into the stars. When she woke up the next morning, she knew that her life would change. She did not know how or when, but she felt it in her bones. The humans were not just legends. They were real, and somewhere out there they were still waiting. Decided that she would find the truth. She would search through every old text, every ancient record, every forgotten database in the galaxy. She would prove that humans existed, and maybe, just maybe, she would find out what happened to them. Little did she know that the answers would come to her much sooner than she expected, and they would not come in the form of dusty old books. They would come in the form of warships filling the sky. 5 years had passed since first heard Elder Bora tell the stories of humans. She was no longer a student sitting on library floors. Now she was a junior researcher at the Velar Academy of Ancient History. Her work focused on one thing only: finding proof that humans had existed. Most of her colleagues thought she was wasting her time. "Humans are fairy tales," they would say. "You should study real history, not children's stories." But did not listen to them. She kept searching, kept reading, kept believing. On the day everything changed was in her small office at the academy. The morning sun was bright, and birds were singing outside her window. She was reading an old text about ancient trade routes when she heard the first explosion. The sound was distant but powerful. It shook the walls of the building and sent books falling from shelves. Jumped up from her chair and ran to the window. What she saw made her blood turn cold. The sky was filled with ships, hundreds of them, thousands of them. They were huge and black, shaped like sharp blades cutting through the clouds, and they were not Velar ships. They knew about the Empire. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were conquerors. They had been building their empire for centuries, taking planet after planet, species after species. The Galactic Council had treaties with them, agreements to keep the peace. But treaties, it seemed, meant nothing to the sirens started screaming across the city. People ran out of buildings, looking up at the sky with terror in their eyes. Parents grabbed their children. Soldiers rushed to their posts, but could see that it was already too late. The ships began their attack. Beams of red light shot down from the sky, hitting buildings and streets. Explosions bloomed like fire flowers across the city. Watched in horror as the Grand Library, the place where she had first heard about humans, collapsed in a cloud of smoke and dust. In the military command center on the other side of the planet, Commander was trying to organize a defense. He was a tall man with strong arms and tired eyes. He had served in the Velar Defense Force for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. "Sir, we have counted over 3,000 enemy ships," a young officer reported. "Our fleet has only 200 vessels. We cannot win this fight." Looked at the screens showing the battle in space. Velar ships were being destroyed one by one. Each blip that disappeared from the screen meant hundreds of dead soldiers, his friends. Send a message to the Galactic Council, ordered. Tell them we are under attack. Request immediate assistance. Yes, sir. But knew that help would not come in time. The nearest Council fleet was weeks away. By then, Veeler would be burning ash. He picked up his communicator and contacted Admiral, who was leading the space defense. The old Admiral's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm, but could see fear in his eyes. How bad is it? Asked. Very bad, replied. We have lost half our fleet in the first hour. They have weapons we have never seen before. Our shields cannot stop them. Can we evacuate civilians? We are trying, but their ships are everywhere. They are shooting down our transport vessels. Paused and took a deep breath. Commander, I do not think we can survive this. Closed his eyes. He thought about his family, his wife, his 2 sons, his old mother. They lived in the capital city, the city that was now burning under fire. Keep fighting, said quietly. Keep fighting until the end. Back in the city was running through the streets. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Buildings were falling around her. People were screaming, crying, dying. She had to find her mother. She had to make sure was safe. She reached her old neighborhood just as another wave of attacks hit. A ship flew low over the houses, dropping bombs that exploded in balls of fire. Threw herself to the ground, covering her head with her arms. Dirt and debris rained down on her. When she looked up, her childhood home was gone. Where it had stood, there was now only a smoking crater. Mother screamed. She ran toward the crater, but strong arms grabbed her and pulled her back. You cannot go there, a soldier shouted. It is too dangerous. My mother was in that house. The soldier's face was covered with blood and soot. His eyes were full of sadness. I am sorry, he said. There is nothing left. Fell to her knees. The world around her seemed to disappear. She could not hear the explosions or the screams. She could only feel the empty hole in her chest where her heart used to be. Hours passed. The attack slowed as night fell. They had done enough damage for one day. They would finish their conquest tomorrow. Found herself in a refugee shelter with thousands of other survivors. People sat on the cold floor, holding each other, crying softly. Children asked for their parents. Parents asked for their children, but many of them would never see their families again. Commander arrived at the shelter that night. He walked among the survivors, offering words of comfort that he did not believe himself. When he saw sitting alone in a corner, something made him stop. Are you hurt? He asked. Looked up at him with empty eyes. My mother is dead. Sat down beside her. I am sorry, I have lost many friends today too. Why is this happening? Asked. Why are they doing this to us? Because we have something they want, said. Our planet is rich with minerals and resources. They want to take it all. Can we stop them? Was silent for a long moment. He wanted to lie, to tell her that everything would be okay, but he was too tired for lies. No, he said. We cannot stop them. Our fleet is almost destroyed. The Galactic Council is too far away. We are alone. Closed her eyes and remembered the stories Elder Bora used to tell. Stories about humans who never gave up, who fought against impossible odds. Elder Bora used to say that humans would return someday, whispered. She said they were waiting for the right moment. Looked at her with confusion. Humans, you mean the old legends? Yes, she believed they were real. Shook his head slowly. They are just stories, child. There are no humans coming to save us. We must save ourselves or die trying. But even as he spoke those words, something strange was happening in the space above Veeler. Something that no one on the planet could see yet. Deep in the darkness between stars, where no light reached and no ships traveled, something was waking up. Something old. Something powerful. Something that had been watching and waiting for 10,000 years. And now at last it was time to move. Far from Velar, in a place that had no name on any map, massive engines roared to life. Lights flickered on in ships that had been dark for centuries. And in the command center of the greatest fleet the galaxy had ever known, a single figure looked at the screens showing the attack on Velar. She smiled. "It is time," she said to the officers around her. "Set course for Velar, maximum speed." The humans were coming home. The morning came gray and cold over Velar. Smoke still rose from the ruins of the cities. The survivors gathered what little they had and prepared for the worst. Everyone knew that today they would finish what they had started. Today, Velar would fall. Commander stood on a hill overlooking the destroyed capital. His uniform was torn and dirty. He had not slept in 2 days. Around him stood the last of his soldiers, barely 5,000 men and women who were still able to fight. Against the army of millions, they did not stand a chance. "Sir," a young soldier said, "the commander is sending a message. He wants us to surrender." Laughed bitterly. "And what does he promise if we surrender?" "He says we will become servants of the Empire. We will work in their mines and factories. Those who resist will be killed." "Slavery or death," said, "those are our choices." He looked at his soldiers. They were scared, but they stood tall. They were ready to fight even if it meant dying. "Tell the commander that Velar will never surrender," said. "We will fight to the last soldier." The message was sent. The battle would begin soon. In the refugee shelter was helping to care for the wounded. She had no medical training, but there were not enough doctors to help everyone. She cleaned wounds, gave water to the thirsty, and held the hands of those who were dying. An old man grabbed her arm as she walked past his bed. He was badly burned and knew he did not have much time left. "The old stories," he whispered. "They are true, I saw them. When I was young I saw a human ship." Knelt beside him. "What do you mean? When did you see it?" 60 years ago, the old man said, his voice growing weaker. "I was a trader. I traveled to the edge of known space and I saw something, a ship damaged and floating dead. I went inside." His eyes went wide as if he was seeing something from long ago. There were bodies, strange bodies, 2 eyes, 2 ears, soft skin. They were humans. "Why did you never tell anyone?" "I tried. No one believed me. They said I was crazy, so I stayed quiet." The old man coughed blood. "But I was not crazy. They were real, and I think there are more of them out there, watching us." He died moments later, still holding his hand. Sat there for a long time, thinking about his words. Could it be true? Were there really humans still alive somewhere in the galaxy? And if they were, why had they not helped when they attacked? Outside, the sky was darkening again. But this time, it was not storm clouds covering the sun. It was ships, thousands of them, moving into position for the final attack. Commander gave the order to prepare for battle. His soldiers took their positions behind walls and in trenches. They knew they would die, but they would take as many with them as they could. The first wave of ground troops landed in the fields outside the city. They were tall and gray, with sharp teeth and 4 arms. They carried weapons that could cut through metal like paper. Behind them came tanks and war machines, rolling across the burnt ground like metal beasts. "Hold your fire," ordered through his communicator. "Wait until they are close." They marched forward, 500 meters, 400, 300. Now shouted, "Open fire." The battle began. Velar soldiers fired everything they had at the advancing army. Explosions lit up the morning sky. Soldiers fell, but more kept coming. Always more. In the space above the planet, Admiral watched the ground battle from his damaged ship. He had only 12 vessels left, all of them wounded and weak. The fleet surrounded him like sharks circling a dying fish. "This is it," said to his crew. "It has been an honor serving with you." He was about to give the order to charge the enemy, one final attack before death, when his sensors picked up something strange. "Sir," a crew member said, her voice shaking, "something is coming." More ships. No, sir, something else, something big. Looked at the screen. At first he saw nothing but the darkness of space. Then slowly shapes began to appear, ships, hundreds of them, then thousands, then more than he could count. They emerged from nowhere as if space itself was giving birth to them. They were unlike any ships had ever seen. They were massive, each one bigger than a warship. Their hulls were dark metal, and their engines burned with blue fire. "Who are they?" whispered. His answer came in the form of a message broadcast on all channels, a message that reached every ship in orbit, every soldier on the ground, every survivor hiding in shelters. "This is Admiral of the Human Reclamation Fleet. We have monitored the attack on Velar with great sorrow. The Empire has broken the ancient laws. They have attacked innocents without cause. They have committed crimes that cannot be forgiven." On the ground, heard the message through the shelter's emergency speakers. She stood frozen, unable to believe what she was hearing. 10,000 years ago, the message continued, humanity left this galaxy. We went to a place beyond your stars, beyond your maps, beyond your dreams. We left because we needed time, time to grow, time to learn, time to become something greater than we were. But we never forgot the friends we left behind. We never forgot the species who welcomed us when we were young and foolish. And we never forgot Velar. Commander stopped fighting. His soldiers stopped fighting. Even the stopped, confused by the massive fleet that had appeared out of nowhere. "To the people of Velar, we remember you. Your ancestors helped us when we first reached the stars. They taught us, traded with us, showed us kindness when others showed us only fear. We have waited 10,000 years to repay that debt. Today, we pay it in full." The voice paused. When it spoke again, it was harder, colder, like steel covered in ice. "To the Empire, you have made a terrible mistake. You thought you could attack the innocent without consequences. You thought you were the strongest power in this galaxy. You were wrong. Leave now and you may survive. Stay, and you will learn why humans were once the most feared species in the universe." There was silence, complete, total silence. Then the commander replied. His voice was arrogant and dismissive. "Humans are legends, myths. You are not real. This is a trick." Admiral laughed. It was not a cruel laugh, but it was not kind either. It was the laugh of someone who knew something that others did not. "You do not believe we are real," she said. "Then let us show you." The human fleet moved. Every ship turned toward the forces. Weapon systems powered up. Shields flickered to life. And then the humans attacked. Watched through a crack in the shelter wall as beams of white light shot down from the sky. They hit ships and tore them apart like they were made of paper. One shot, one kill. The weapons fired back, but their attacks bounced off human shields like rain off stone. "They are real," whispered, tears running down her face. "They are real, the stories were true." Elder Bora had been right. The old man who died that morning had been right. Humans were not just myths. They were saviors. And they had come home. The sky above Velar burned with the fire of 1,000 battles. Ships exploded like stars dying too soon. The invaders who had seemed unstoppable just hours ago were now running, fleeing, screaming for mercy that would not come. Captain Wu stood at the front of the first human landing craft as it descended toward the planet's surface. He was a tall man with short black hair and calm eyes. Around him sat 100 soldiers, all of them wearing armor that seemed to flow like water when they moved. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. "Listen up," Wu said to his team. "We are going to clear the ground forces and rescue the survivors. Remember the rules. Protect the innocent, neutralize the enemy, leave no one behind." Questions? There were no questions. They had trained for this moment for years. The landing craft touched down in a field filled with soldiers. Before the craft's doors even fully opened, Wu was already moving. He jumped out and fired 3 shots from his rifle. 3 soldiers fell. His team followed. They moved like shadows, fast and quiet. Their weapons made almost no sound, just soft hums followed by the crash of falling bodies. They tried to fight back, but their attacks could not get through human armor. Their bullets and blades bounced off like toys. A commander with golden marks on his armor stepped forward, shouting orders. Wu walked toward him slowly, ignoring the shots that hit his chest and did nothing. "Your weapons cannot hurt us," Wu said calmly. "Your army is broken. Your fleet is destroyed. Surrender now and you will be treated fairly. Continue fighting and you will die." The commander spat on the ground. "Humans are weak creatures. You have tricks and toys, but you do not have the heart for real war." Wu sighed. He had hoped to avoid more death, but they had chosen their path. "Very well," he said. He moved so fast that the commander did not even see it happen. One moment, Wu was standing still. The next moment, he was behind the commander, and the commander was falling to the ground. The other soldiers stared in shock. Their leader was defeated in less than a second. How was this possible? How could these small, soft-skinned creatures be so powerful? "Anyone else?" Wu asked. They dropped their weapons. They fell to their knees, surrender written on their faces. From the hill overlooking the battlefield, Commander watched in amazement. He had spent his whole life training to be a soldier. He had fought in battles and won victories that made him famous across Velar, but he had never seen anything like this. The humans moved through the army like fire through dry grass. They were not just winning, they were dominating. Every move they made was perfect. Every shot they fired hit its target. They did not waste energy or bullets. They did not show anger or fear. They simply did what needed to be done. "They are artists," one of soldiers whispered. "They fight like it is a dance." Nodded slowly. "Now I understand why the old stories said humans were dangerous. It was not about their weapons or their ships. It is about their minds. They think faster than us. They plan better than us. They never give up." In space, the battle was even more one-sided. Admiral sat in her command chair, watching the screens that showed the destruction of the fleet. Her officers worked quietly around her, each one focused on their task. "Admiral," a young officer reported, "the flagship is trying to escape. Should we pursue?" Thought for a moment. The High Commander was on that ship. If he escaped, he would return with a larger fleet. He would attack other planets, kill more innocent people. The cycle of violence would continue. "Track them," ordered, "but do not destroy them yet. I want to give them one more chance." She opened a communication channel to the flagship. The face of the High Commander appeared on her screen. He was old and his 4 arms were shaking with rage. "Human witch," he growled. "You think you have one. This is only the beginning. The Empire has 1,000 fleets. We will crush you and everyone who stands with you." Smiled softly. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not friendly either. "High Commander, I have been alive for 320 years. In that time I have seen many empires rise and fall. I have watched species destroy themselves with war and greed, and I have learned one important lesson." "And what lesson is that?" "The lesson is this: strength without wisdom is like fire without control. It burns bright for a moment, then destroys everything around it, including itself." Leaned forward in her chair. "The Empire is strong, but you have no wisdom. You attack the weak because you can, not because you should. You take and take without giving anything back, and that is why you will fall." The High Commander laughed. "Pretty words from a creature who hides in the darkness for 10,000 years. You are cowards, all of you." "We are not cowards," said. "We simply know when to fight and when to wait. We waited because we were not ready. We waited because the galaxy needed to solve its own problems. But when the innocent suffer and no one helps them, we cannot stand by. That is not who we are." She took a deep breath. "You have one choice, High Commander. Leave this sector of space forever. Never attack innocent planets again. Do this and we will let you live. Refuse and your empire will end today." For a long moment, there was silence. The High Commander looked at his screens, at the burning wreckage of his once great fleet. He looked at the human ships that surrounded him, each one capable of destroying his flagship in seconds. And he made his choice. "We will leave," he said, his voice bitter with defeat. "But remember this, human. Empires have long memories. We will not forget what happened here today." "Neither will we," replied. "And that is why you should pray that our paths never cross again." The flagship turned and fled into the darkness between stars. The rest of their ships followed. Within an hour, there was not a single vessel left in the Velar system. On the ground, Captain Wu and his team had finished clearing the last of the enemy soldiers. The battlefield was quiet now, covered with smoke and the bodies of the fallen. Human medics moved through the destruction, helping wounded Velar soldiers and civilians. Wu found Commander standing alone, looking at the sky where the battle had been. "Commander," Wu asked, "I am Captain Wu of the Human Ground Forces. Are you injured?" Turned to look at him. Up close, the human seemed so ordinary. He was shorter than, with soft brown skin and gentle eyes. He did not look like a warrior who had just defeated an army. "I am not injured," said slowly, "but I do not understand. How did you do this? How did you appear from nowhere and destroy the most powerful fleet in the galaxy?" Wu smiled. "We had 10,000 years to prepare. We built better ships, better weapons, better armor. We studied every species in the galaxy and learned from them all. And most importantly, we never forgot why we fight." "And why do you fight?" Wu looked at the ruins of the city, at the survivors who were slowly coming out of their shelters. "We fight so that others do not have to. We fight so that children can grow up without fear. We fight because somewhere long ago, there were people on Velar who helped a young and foolish human species take their first steps into the stars. And debts like that are never forgotten." Felt tears in his eyes. For the first time since the attack began, he allowed himself to feel hope. "Thank you," he said simply. Wu placed a hand on his shoulder. "Do not thank us yet. There is much work to be done, but today at least you can rest. The war is over. Velar is safe." Above them, the human fleet hung in the sky like a shield made of stars. The people of Velar looked up and saw something they had never seen before. Hope in the shape of warships, protection in the form of legends come to life. The humans had returned, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. 3 weeks had passed since the battle. The skies above Velar were clear again, and the 3 moons shone brightly every night. But the planet was not the same. It would never be the same. The cities were still in ruins. The dead were still being counted, but everywhere there was rebuilding. Human engineers worked side by side with Velar workers, using technology that seemed like magic to construct new buildings and repair old ones. Hospitals rose from the ashes. Schools were rebuilt. Homes were restored. And in the center of the capital, where the Grand Library once stood, a new structure was being built. It would be bigger than the old one, filled with books and records from both Velar and human history. It would be a symbol of hope, a promise that knowledge would never again be lost. Walked through the construction site, watching the workers move steel beams and pour concrete. She wore simple clothes, not the formal robes of a scholar. There was too much work to do for fancy dress. "Miss." She turned to see Captain Wu approaching. He had stayed on Velar after the battle, helping with the relief efforts. In the weeks since they first met, he had become something like a friend to her. "Captain Wu," she said with a small bow, "how are the repairs going in the Eastern District?" "Very well, we should have power restored there by tomorrow." He looked at the new library taking shape. "This is beautiful. Your people have good taste." "It was Elder Bora's design," said quietly. "She made it years ago, hoping that someday we could build a bigger library. She did not live to see it happen." Wu nodded with understanding. "She was the one who told you stories about humans, yes. Commander mentioned her." "Yes, she believed in your people when no one else did. She said you would return, smiled sadly. I wish she could be here now. Perhaps she is, Wu said gently. In a way, all the people who kept the stories alive are here. They live on in you and in this library. Their belief made this moment possible. They walked together in comfortable silence for a while. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Workers were finishing their shifts, heading home to families that had survived the attack. Captain, may I ask you something? Said. Of course. Where did you go? For 10,000 years, where were you? Wu smiled. That is a long story, but the simple answer is, we went to another galaxy. We found a place where we could grow without disturbing anyone. We built new worlds, new societies, new technologies. We made many mistakes along the way, but we learned from them all. And why did you come back? Because we always planned to return. Our ancestors made a promise. When the time was right, we would come back to help our old friends. We have been watching this galaxy for centuries, waiting for the right moment. He paused. When we saw the attack Velar, we knew the time had come. Thought about this. So you have been watching us all along, like guardians in the shadows. Something like that. We could not interfere too much. Species need to find their own paths, but we could not abandon you completely either. You were our first friends among the stars. That means something to us. They arrived at a small hill overlooking the city. From here, they could see the human ships still floating in the sky, keeping watch over the planet. Smaller craft moved between them and the surface, carrying supplies and people. What happens now? Asked. Now the galaxy changes. The Galactic Council has already contacted us. They want to talk about treaties and alliances. Other species want to know if we will help them too. Wu shook his head slowly. Everything is going to be different. Some changes will be good. Some will be difficult. But that is the nature of history. It never stops moving. Looked at the sky, at the massive ships that had saved her planet. Will you stay? Some of us will. We want to help Velar rebuild. And we want to build a new relationship between our people, not as legends but as equals and friends. I would like that, Sid. A new sound filled the air, a soft humming that grew louder. Looked up and saw a human shuttle descending toward them. It landed gently on the hill and a figure stepped out. It was Admiral. Had seen pictures of her during the battle, but meeting her in person was something different. Was tall for a human, with gray hair pulled back in a simple style. Her uniform was dark blue with silver markings, but it was her eyes that caught attention. They were old eyes, eyes that had seen thousands of years pass. Admiral, Wu said, straightening to attention. I did not expect you. At ease, Captain. Walked toward them, her boots crunching on the gravel. I wanted to see the reconstruction myself, and I wanted to meet the young scholar who believed in us when no one else did. Felt her face grow warm. Admiral, I was just a student. I did not do anything special. Smiled and it changed her whole face. She seemed younger, warmer, more human. You kept the stories alive. You believed when it was easier not to believe. That is not nothing, that is everything. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a pendant on a silver chain, a simple circle with a star in the center. This is the symbol of the human reclamation fleet, explained. We give it to those who have shown courage and faith. I would like you to have it. Took the pendant with trembling hands. I do not know what to say. You do not have to say anything. Just promise me one thing. Anything. His eyes grew serious. Keep telling the stories, not just about humans, but about all the species who have fought and dreamed and hoped for a better future. Stories are more powerful than weapons. They last longer than empires. They can change the galaxy in ways that nothing else can. Held the pendant close to her chest. I promise. Extended her hand, a human gesture of friendship that had read about but never experienced. Took it, and they shook hands under the light of 3 moons. "Welcome to the future of Valor," said. "It is going to be an interesting journey." That night there was a celebration in the capital. Not a grand festival, there was still too much grief for that, but a quiet gathering where survivors shared food and stories. Human soldiers sat with Velar families, learning about local customs and sharing tales of their own world. Commander stood at the edge of the gathering, watching his people begin to heal. Captain Wu joined him with 2 cups of warm drink. "You should rest, Commander," Wu said. "You have earned it." "I will rest when my planet is safe," replied. Then he paused. "Actually, I suppose it is safe now, safer than it has ever been." "It will take time to feel that way. Wounds do not heal overnight." Took the cup and drank. The liquid was human coffee, they called it, and it was surprisingly good. "Captain, do you think other species will accept humans? After all this time, after all the fear and doubt?" Wu thought carefully before answering. "Some will not. Change is always difficult, but that is okay. We are not here to force anyone to accept us. We are here to offer friendship to those who want it and protection to those who need it. The rest will follow in time." Nodded slowly. "You know, when I was young, my grandmother used to tell me stories about humans. She said they were small but fierce, gentle but dangerous. She said they protected the weak and fought the strong." He looked at Wu. "She was right. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman." "She was. I wish she could have lived to see this day." They stood together in silence, 2 soldiers from different species, watching the celebration unfold. Above them, the human fleet hung in the sky like a promise of safety. Across the gathering sat with a group of children. They looked up at her with wide eyes as she held the pendant and began to speak. "Long ago," she said, her voice soft but clear, "there was a species called humans." The children leaned forward, hungry for the story, and smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning. The humans had returned, the myths had become reality, and the galaxy, for the first time in 10,000 years, had hope. Not hope that someone would come to save them, but hope that they were no longer alone. Hope that when darkness fell, there would always be someone standing in the light. That was the gift the humans brought back with them. And it was worth more than all the weapons in the universe.